All right, we're on. We're good to go.
We're on.
I'm laughing and smiling because I know that you don't know what these questions are that I'm going to ask you. But for those actually taking the time to view this, this is part of the Meet the Team series. I won't introduce you, Stanley. I'll let you do that introduction yourself. But I've got kind of five quick fire questions. But this is all about our viewers and me and anyone really just getting to know a little bit more about James Griffin, to be honest. So, first question, question number one is tell me about you, but you're not allowed to include any mention of work or career. So just tell me about James Griffin.
Awesome question. Yeah. I remember reading a thing recently where people said when you go to a party and people say, what do you do? And everyone always talks about what they do at work, but you're not really talking about yourself there, are you? You're talking about how you identify in the workplace. So yeah, James Griffin. So father of two, happily married, live in London. Um, I am a avid sports fan. I probably spend way too much time consuming sports media and news coverage. Um, I like the outdoors. I like to wear shorts. And I hate the winter. And the older I get, the more I hate the winter, in all honesty. I think you've heard me say it recently, Ollie. I feel like a bear in a cave by the time it gets to like February, waiting for the first green shoots of spring to hit again. Um, yeah, I guess I'm kind of relatively sort of typical for a bloke in London. I like craft beer. I like to barbecue meat, that kind of stuff. Um, but the thing that might set me apart a little bit is I volunteer, and I have done for the last 8 years, to coach my son's football team. And I've done that since he was in year two at primary school, and he'll start year 10 in secondary school in September. And that's been, a real journey, not just to do with me and my son, but just to do with me and understanding the younger generations that are coming into their sort of maturing years and some of the challenges they face. And I really enjoy it. Part of that is to try and sort of build their resilience, not just about football and winning football matches. It's about a lot of other things. So that kind of excites me too. So yeah, I hope that gives everybody a bit of a picture of James Griffin, not Stanley Tucci. James Griffin. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to avoid the Stanley Tucci likeness, but I think I opened it up with a mention of Stanley.
You
I'm sure
did,
others
yeah.
already are aware of it. But no, love the background. I think part of you, well, part of me, sorry, felt like you were describing me there. Sports fan, likes to wear shorts, loves craft beer,
Yeah.
loves to put meat on the barbecue. No, I love it. I love it. Okay,
There's nothing I
so
love more than, and actually, we're doing it this weekend. We're going camping, and it's just a dads and kids thing. We throw the tents up, the kids go and play football, the dads drink a few beers, we cook some food. It's to me that's a wonderful way to spend the weekend. It's simple. There's no digital devices. Everybody's doing all the things that we read that we should do, and you're doing it with some of your closest friends. That to me is A plus.
love it. Absolutely love it. All right. So sticking on the personal side, what would you say is your biggest personal achievement?
Oh man, I always struggle with these kind of things. I'm not very good at compliments or sort of, self-promotion. Um, but my biggest personal achievement, I mean, it's got to be my wife and my family, I think. And I'll tell you a little story. Me and my wife met in 1993, but we didn't get married until 2000. I'm going to get this wrong now. Hopefully, she won't watch this. 2017. Okay, so in the intervening period, so we met at college when we were studying A levels, and then our lives went a very different paths and we went our different way. But we actually came back together again. And that I kind of think, thank God that happened, because she kind of, creates a lot of who I am in as an older person. Um, so I consider that an achievement, and for us to have then had, two wonderful kids, we've bought a nice home, we're lucky, and we've worked very, very hard to achieve that ourselves. So I think my own, personal achievement is all centered on, family and the dynamics that go and create that. It's not to do with anything I achieved in sport or anything I've done, in my coaching or anything like that. It's that those people make me who I am, and so I have to say it's them.
Yeah, I love that. It's fascinating how you met when you were so much younger, and your paths went very different ways but came back together again. I'm not necessarily a believer in fate per se, but sometimes, sometimes things happen, and they happen for a reason. And
Yeah,
regardless of what
absolutely.
we ever do in life, everything we do is about our family, right? And that
Totally.
transcends through the eras and generations. Like those that are closest to us, that's just us being deeply human at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But I am going to shift
Well,
gears for my
and
next question.
yeah, just to
But
comment on that
you
quickly
finished
before
me.
you do. Yeah, I mean, this kind of parting of ways and coming back together is that I'm actually really, really grateful that happened, because, the person I was back then is definitely not the person I am now. We do change, we evolve, and I probably wasn't exactly, you know, um, I was a different guy back then, let's say. And, if we'd have tried to gone on the path that we have more recently back then, me and my wife, we may not have been sat here now. Do you know what I mean? I might have
Yeah.
screwed it up, is what I'm saying.
Who knows? Who knows? Everything
Who
happens for a
knows?
reason,
Yeah,
though.
yeah.
Timing is everything. But I'm going to shift gears a little bit away from the personal side and go a little bit more
Cool.
professional. Not for not for your career story, because I think we'll get into that in another conversation, because I love hearing people's stories, but just really like quickly and succinctly for the audience, what do you do at Skill Collective?
What do I do at Skill Collective? So I do I do 2/3 main things, and putting it as succinctly as possible. So I work across both our enterprise and our vendor services practices. We sell services on both sides of the coin, to help organizations, whether that's an enterprise or whether that's a technology or a services vendor, do stuff with skills in inverted commas. And because I work on both sides of that coin, I also have a role where I kind of bridge the two of them. And that is through our partner strategy, which really, both those vendor and those enterprise service, winning that business and delivering that business, that excites me. But the partner strategy is what really excites me, because it kind of brings it all together. And to summarize that partner strategy, um, when you think of, SaaS technology vendors in the skill space, or services vendors who want to, move into the skill space, they need experts. They need people like us to help them do that. And their clients also need us to enable them to get started with skills, optimize with skills, whatever they do. So being able to kind of link those two in a way that adds value to both the enterprise and the technology or the services partner, I think that's really cool. And I actually think that we're developing a partner strategy that is going to be a bit of a game changer. I've worked at technology companies before, and we partner with anybody that's willing to sign a contract, and they don't really do an awful lot. Whereas here we're being super targeted to provide a partnership strategy which is going to add value to everybody in that ecosystem. So I hope that was not too long-winded, but works for you, Ollie. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it does. And what is then because I asked this question on the personal side, what's your biggest personal achievement? What's your biggest professional achievement?
Yeah, again, this is one I struggle with. Why do I struggle with these things? I think my biggest professional achievement is I've totally reevaluated in the last sort of 12 months how I perceive what I do. And you'll know this very well. And my colleague Gordon, he recommended a book to me, Range, which I haven't quite completed, but it's this concept of I'm a bit of a generalist. So I can do a little bit of everything. We had an old colleague, Tim Burnett, T-Bone. He called me a Swiss Army knife. Okay, so a Swiss Army knife, I'm assuming anybody listening to this knows what a Swiss Army knife is, but for the avoidance of doubt, a Swiss Army knife is a very small knife which has a number of tools on it which could be purposed for doing many, many different things. And when he called me that, I was like, not sure if I like that or not. And then eventually I kind of assessed it and reflected on it. And now I actually think it's pretty cool. So I think my biggest achievement in my professional career is to become this person who can do a little bit of everything. Or maybe in some areas, it's a lot of that specific capability. But I certainly, you cannot put me in like, a sales role. You can't put me just in a CS role. I can do a bit of operations. I can do partner management. I can do all of these different things across the ecosystem or across a business, if you like. And actually, I'm kind of opening my mind up to that actually being, pretty cool and pretty useful.
Yeah, I love that. I think not only is it pretty useful, it is, yeah, you're absolutely right. It's cool. And I think it's what gives you all the ingredients to be a phenomenal consultant, because we talk about, Skill Collective's unique value proposition, but like your unique value proposition is you understand the implications of all things skills across the entire business. So that Swiss Army knife kind of analogy is really relevant. You could be in any situation, but you've got this kind of small tool to take out your pocket and choose the right tool to do the job at the right time. Now, it might not be the sharpest knife that you could possibly find anywhere in the world, but you know what? You've got a knife to be able to use and solve a problem there
Exactly.
and then. I think that's what makes you
Yeah.
kind of super powerful, in your career. And I find it really um, just almost gratifying to hear you talk about that being a great achievement, because we've had these conversations many many times. I know you weren't prepped for that answer, but there is absolutely there's nothing wrong with being an expert generalist. In fact, there's everything right about it, and used
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
right way, it's incredibly valuable for your clients all over the world. So I love it. I love it.
totally. Well, I think the alternative is to say, okay, think of something specific that has happened. And you and I know each other pretty well, and we've worked on a number of businesses together, and we've actually been through an acquisition together. Like we've been acquired, and we went on that journey together. We were flown around, we were interviewed, we were wined, we were dined. That was cool. There's no denying it. And it would have been easy for me to say that, that as an achievement to get a very um, a relatively small but fast growing SaaS startup acquired by another business, that would probably be most people's answers. But I actually think that is A, pretty obvious, and B, it only really focuses on that period of time. It doesn't take account of everything else. So I think that's why I gave that answer.
Yeah. No, I love it. Love it. Okay, last question.
Mm.
And I know this is completely unprepped, so this one might take you by surprise, as I know a couple of the others are already taking you by surprise. Tell us all one thing that nobody actually knows about James Griffin.
That nobody actually knows. Nobody who's possibly going to be watching this video.
What's that
Yeah, that
one
is
that
difficult.
one thing? Maybe it's like that one thing or one story you bring out, around the dinner table that
Well, other
people are
than I used to
surprised to
have
hear
long
from you.
hair down the back of my shoulders.
Oh,
Um,
to be fair, that sounds like a good story in itself. You could tell that one.
well, I did,
Just
yeah,
got an
yeah.
image
I
in my
came,
head now.
I came back, I came back from So when I was younger, I was unfortunate enough. My dad passed away when I was pretty young, and I went off to Australia when I was 19, and and I had a ball. Like I had an absolute ball. I was there for a year, and I was doing the backpacker thing, and I was making amazing friends, and I was living in Sydney, and I was holding down some jobs, and I was doing some just amazing stuff for a 19-year-old lad to be doing. But by virtue of the fun I was having, I maybe put on a bit of extra timber, and I also grew my hair really long. So when my mum and I flew back on like the 5th of February, it was cold. I came from, like 35-degree heat in Sydney, wearing shorts all the time, hitting the beach, all of that fun stuff. Came back to Heathrow. My mum picks me up at the airport. She's got a big coat for me because she's my mum and that's how she thinks. And we didn't have any email then. She'd barely seen a photo of me. This is kind of, at the sort of, when the internet was barely a thing. And she said something to me like, "Oh, you look like a fat biker." Because I had this long hair, I was kind of maybe a bit rotund and stuff like that. So yeah, I guess that's one thing that anybody who knows me in a professional capacity will not know, that I haven't always had
Yeah,
the I used to have this hair originally down to here. When I came back from Australia, it was almost down to below my shoulders. So I
I
don't know if
love
that was the
that.
kind of thing you were looking for.
J-
I could
Yeah,
probably dig out a photo, but
I was going to
there
say,
you
can we have a
go. Yeah.
photo? Can we have a photo for like the thumbnail on YouTube that this goes on? That's I didn't know the fat biker story. I love that. No, that's cool. Thanks, Griffo. Um,
Especially from your mum, right? Who's so loved, hasn't seen me in a year, and is really, excited to see me, but then was almost a bit like, "Is this my son? What's happened to my
yeah,
son?" Yeah, it was a bit like that. But then I had to tell her a few days later that I'd also got a tattoo, which kind of fully completed the biker story, but also was another thing that she really, really didn't like was tattoos, and she still doesn't like them.
okay.
But she got over that quite quickly because she was glad to have me home. But there you go.
Amazing. Amazing. I love it. So what I've learned from this conversation then is if anybody needs a really decent piece of meat grilled on the barbie, or needs a Stanley Tucci look-alike to attend perhaps a good family gathering, or just generally a client just needs that kind of chief Swiss Army knife officer, they've got you. They've got you.
Here I am. Here I am.
Here you
Yeah,
are.
come and find me. Hit me up on LinkedIn.
Cheers, James.